Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhner. David Pourquery with us today. I had a couple of goes at that because I'm sure at school he got ravaged for that surname. But basically, from hedge funds to Google Ads, David is the founder of GROAS.ai, created the world's first fully automated AI agents that outperform human Google Ads, ad marketers. Started out as an investor at HIG Capital, a Miami-based fund where he managed over $75 billion in assets, helping him develop a rigorous data-driven approach to evaluating businesses and identifying operational inefficiencies. So he started his own business. I believe it is 1 year on since the founding date. So do you know now why your bosses were such assholes?
I haven't yet figured it out, unfortunately. No, I'm joking. Yeah, what a ride.
Yeah, so obviously taking the move from working at quite a cutthroat industry in investing to another cutthroat industry, which is the AI-driven sort of performance marketing side. Let's just maybe think about or talk about how you made the switch from the investment side or using your investment brain and going into Google Ads. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, isn't it?
Yes and no. I think both are just, it's all about data in both of these games, right? I knew whilst I was there at the P fund that I wanted to leave ASAP. Okay. I just didn't know in what vehicle that would be. What I was doing whilst I was working a full-time job in private equity was running up my own e-commerce stores in the evenings, right? Dropshipping stores and trying to scale those up to as high as possible. And I was doing that pretty successfully for like a year and a half. And that's good because e-com is one of the things you can do the work on the weekends, late nights. And then when you're in meetings in a boardroom, you have all these Shopify notifications. And I thought I was Jeff Bezos and great stuff, right? But it's that's when I started to get pretty good, I would say, at Meta and Google and learning a lot about those. I saw there was a lot of inefficiencies, I thought, with Google Ads. Right. So back then, now GROAS has obviously changed to something completely different, but initially all I wanted to do was basically build a very basic like SaaS, a very basic tool that enabled you to map your landing page to what the person was searching for in order to increase conversion rates. Right. The reason is that came from, I had this brand in the UK. Are you familiar with Manscaped?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I had a competing brand. There you go. I had a competing brand with Manscaped in the UK, obviously much smaller scale. But what I found is people were buying that product from a lot of different angles. So I was like, okay, this is a very generic, super simple, like basic product. What if I can match all of the copy to the search intent of the person like looking for the solution, right? So if someone was searching for chest hair trimmer, all of a sudden, all of the copy and images would be about chest hair and how it's the best thing on earth to cut chest hair. Someone was searching for arm hair trimmer, same principle. So that's actually how just GROAS started out, as a very basic, simple like SaaS tool that solved that problem. And then we've obviously evolved into a whole lot more since.
So I see there's a lot of focus on landing pages, and I had a note here about landing pages. You say a really nice article you wrote was RIP the static landing page. So maybe talk a little bit, because what you're talking about there is that from the intent phase, you can tell from somebody's intent when they're searching on Google what their particular problem is. So as you mentioned, underarm hair, wabbos, or whatever it is. And your tool is then going to update that particular landing page or create that landing page in real time? Or how is your solution solving that particular issue? And how does the Google ad spend come in there?
So what it does is you have, I guess, your base template. So where you were sending your traffic to before, right? So it's just a generic page. All that we did, the only innovation that we had was you can install a very small piece of JavaScript on that page, and then GROAS can generate hundreds of variations of that page, and then A/B test them in real time in your campaigns to figure out which will be the winners, right? Because even one thing that most marketers completely overlook is like how good your landing page is. Does it speak to the customer needs? Does it speak to intent? Is it built to convert? Because even if you get everything right within Google Ads, if your landing page is crap, you're not going to make money with Google Ads. You literally just will not. So that was, I guess, the first sort of thing, the first innovation that we did was the landing page stuff. Then we evolved into a lot more, right? Then we realized, okay, you can get the landing page right, but inside Google, there's like hundreds of thousands of things going on in any campaign at any given moment. It's probably too much for one human to track, let alone, even if you give it to lots of humans to look at that data, it's very hard to process that and then act on it quick enough. So then we started building what I call full autonomy on Google Ads, which is you can connect a campaign to GROAS and then never have to look at it again because it's being scaled and optimized better than a team of 100 humans that you could hire. So that was like, I guess, the next phase after that.
The autonomous agents are great. Having hundreds of thousands or multitudes of different pages is great. How do you ensure the quality of the copy? And when I say this, I mean, I come from an advertising and brand background. Tone of voice, all of these issues are extremely important. When GROAS is creating this content, how is it managing the quality? So not that they're spelling mistake, but how is that process managed? Because a lot of companies are going to say, well, it needs to be in our tone of voice. It has to use these particular key phrases. There's a lot of back-end work that needs to be done first to create a great page, right? You can't just say, please do it and expect miracles.
Very fair. So I think we addressed that with, I was going to say two things, but actually three things, right? The first thing is obviously inside GROAS, we have a whole bunch of parameters and things you can set around those very things, right? Things about your brand, your offer, tonality, that sort of thing. That's like step one, and that was always baked into the product. The second thing is the self-learning that occurs. So GROAS will learn from your best performing ad creatives, landing pages, et cetera, look at the patterns in that copy, and then try apply those to new variations, right? So there's some self-learning that occurs within the system, particular to each account. I think lastly, which is still, again, the final thing, is you do need humans in there, right? So every GROAS account, whoever we deal with, there is a dedicated account manager on our end who's observing all of this, right? And making sure that everything is in line. But you're right, getting copy that is in line with somebody's brand and offer is still a challenge, I think, that a lot of copywriters face, I think.
Now, you mentioned the human element. Obviously, you're selling an agent concept.
Yeah.
But you have actual people. So
absolutely.
I'm sure you wanted no people working for you when you started this out. But unfortunately, as you grow your business, you're going to have to start bringing on real people and smart folks into your business.
100%.
This is one of the challenges of a growing business. The second element is the onboarding and the training of the customer get onto the platform. You've been going for over a year. You're already doing 7 figures in terms of dealing with clients' budgets. Let's look at scale for you. What is success going to look like for David in the next year? What are you've had a year, you've probably worked out some of the kinks, and you're now starting to get your feet in the business. What does GROAS look like in a year's time versus now?
Great question. Very good question, because that's changed a lot. I think my outlook on that changed a lot. I'll give you a quick timeline, right? A year ago, great, I leave a full-time job with, at this point, nothing much more than a bit of an idea, a bit of a concept, like an MVP was there. Some people were interested in, but yeah, still very basic. Get a lot of users to this tool. At the time, we labeled it as a tool. It was sort of super low entry ticket. The first variation of GROAS cost $49 a month, but that's like a small amount of ad spend. Good stuff. We then realized, hey, actually, full autonomy is where this is headed. So then we spend the next 4 to 5 months building our own models, training our own stuff to go towards full autonomy. And then on the 1st of January of this year is when we launched that, right? I think we were the first to actually have end-to-end and deploy that on people's campaigns, by the way, because that takes a bit of stones because it's real people's money. But I think we were the first to do this at the start of the year.
Trust me.
Literally, that's how it was. And people trusted us. And so anyway, long story short, so from January to April, we go through unbelievably explosive growth. Okay, because it was a self-serve sign up, which meant anyone on earth could literally just pay and start using the stuff, right? So we literally just did this for those 4 months. So okay, obviously that's great. That's sort of what you want. And it was all coming, by the way, organically. So LLMs were like the main thing referring GROAS, LLMs and SEO. And then the second thing was obviously just referrals, customers referring our customers. Great. The problem is that came with a lot of pain, because what we realized in that moment was that we can't help everybody. It's like with the stuff we've built, it's sort of like putting an F1 engine into a golf cart, right? So like it's hard to help somebody who's only spending $1,000 a month or $500 a month on Google Ads. So I think our model shifted probably around May, June, July, where we realized, okay, our goal is not to get the most number of businesses on board. Our goal actually instead is probably roughly the following, which is we're going to be very selective with the businesses we work with, right? So like that goes up and the quality of client goes up. But then the other thing where we found a lot of success with, and like the plan is to grow this as much as possible, and that's going really well, is on the agency side. The agencies are our best clients ever by far. I love them. They never leave. They get instant value from it from day one. It's also the best validation of what we've built, the technology we built. Because like people have been doing Google Ads for 20 years, like, wow, like, this is insane. I love this. So I think success on that front looks like in a year's time is we continue to massively grow that agency book because they're just great to work with. We love dealing with them. And on the business side, continue to sort of go more and more up market and scale that way. The other thing we have coming is we have a lot of stuff, new offers launching under the GROAS umbrella. So we aren't just going to stop at Google Ads. There are other things coming, but more on that maybe another time.
Yeah. That, obviously, I think there's the great philosopher Mike Tyson said, every great idea, what a great idea changes once you get punched in the face. So every strategy changes. And that's pretty much, I think, what happened.
100%.
What happened to you. And the agency route, that's a very smart thing to do. Rather than going after lots of little hokey pokies, you go for the whales. But this is a competitive space. I've interviewed a couple of folks in the performance analytics and performance marketing side, and everyone has an AI agent, and everyone is using data, and everyone. So, what is your secret sauce? Obviously, relationships, your background, that you're not a charlatan, and that you've done this yourself with your own e-commerce businesses helps. But what is the David or the GROAS secret sauce that is going to keep you either in a segment of your own in this market or make you number one in this segment? What is that sauce?
Terrific question. One, by the way, I ask myself every day, by the way, just to be clear. But look, I think my opinion is this. December 2025 was the turning point for software, whereby, in my opinion, at that point, software became commodified. Anyone and anybody can now build some prototype with Claude Code. So before, maybe I think your edge could be technical, right? You can hire the best developers, whatever. I now refuse to believe that's true, right? You can hire a team of, I don't know, 2 or 3 people maybe in Kenya, right? Earning $5 an hour. But if they have access to Claude Code, they can possibly, and maybe that's a controversial statement, but possibly outship, some veteran who's been coding for 20 years, simply because the game has changed. So I don't think the edge can be so technical anymore. Obviously, we have an edge on that front because we've been doing this, like full autonomy, the longest. I see a lot of people launching like AI assisted campaigns. I don't think that's interesting. Personally, I don't want to do that. We have been doing like full autonomy for the longest. So that learning compounds and it accrues. So GROAS, but just FYI, GROAS today is much better than GROAS a month ago, which was better than the GROAS a month before that. It's like that's accruing and that's learning. We have a lot of self-learning going on. Okay, good stuff. But even then, that doesn't, in my head, make we're safe. Absolutely not. Not a chance. I think in my head, like what I think about most is obviously true. It's just brand and distribution, right? What do people say and think about your brand generally? Like what are people saying behind your back? The agency owners, a lot of people know each other. What are they saying about GROAS when they use it? That's number one. And then 2 is how good are we as a business? And I think this is my number one job really as CEO is obviously hiring, but then also more importantly, demand gen, right? And who can I best hire to do the demand gen for us is LTV to CAC. Can we master LTV to CAC on paid ads channels ourselves, right? Like that is brand and distribution are like the main things that I think about nowadays, day to day, with obviously hiring. But yeah, I think the days of, you having a really good software team, that sort of stuff being an edge, I think are gone.
I was going to touch on that because you've got a computer science degree from a decent university. Would you hire somebody with a computer science degree now, or would you tell your kids to go into computer science? I think 10 years down the road and 15 years down the road.
I don't even look at degrees, to be honest, when hiring. That doesn't come into my thing. Because the question is, would I even go to university? Would I even tell them to go to university? I would say depends on what they want to do. I would never want to force my children to do anything, but they can do what they want rather. But like, I don't think it's as necessary now as it was maybe, 15, 20, 25 years ago. I think the world has changed. The market shifted. I think go if you have a very strong reason, but if you just want to study computer science for the sake of it, you can sort of self-teach at this point.
Yeah. You touched on branding, and obviously this is a podcast that has a strong branding angle to it. I've gone to your website. Very nice. There are 1 or 2 little areas that I would make some adjustments, and some of the blogs are missing images. But those are just what you call it, teething errors.
Sure.
You talk about one of the differentiators for you is you're going to be moving from, taking the rats and mice to getting agencies and elements like that. The brand side of your business, I know you're doing a podcast now, but this is to build your profile and David's profile, because it's very important. I think personal branding, especially in this industry where people don't just see a faceless agent, they know David is the guy behind this. He's run huge campaigns. He's worked for these, big companies. He's dealt with money. He knows the pain of this industry. As a scale up business like yourself, how important is brand, and what are you doing about it?
It's everything. I think it's just like as you said, there's both the business brand and also like the personal brand, right? I think the business brand, I think I probably got a little bit cocky because things have changed, but at least initially LLMs loved GROAS as a tool, mentioning us as an AI agent, as like a little tool, right? So I was like, okay, cool. We have a brand. We didn't have, I won't swear, we didn't have anything, and we don't have anything, right? So that's something I'm more considering. I think we are starting to do some more stuff, right? Search engine land, obviously well respected, publisher in the space. We have a few pieces with them. Most recently, a case study that we just like literally uploaded of us with an e-com player spending 200K a month on ads. That sort of stuff is good. It compounds. It gets mentioned in LLMs. It builds credibility. So that's one side, but that takes a bit longer. The other thing I'm actually working on, you touched on that, is personal brand. I think personal brand is people buy from people. End of the day, right? So I think we're now starting to get a bit more active on LinkedIn. Watch that space because that's going to get, let's just say, very messy soon.
Yeah.
Just watch it. But I would say, on my side, I'm also just podcasts are useful, but I think personal brand is like a big thing I'm trying to work on and improve because with AI, with everything becoming more and more commodified, it's going to be, I think, one of the last differentiators. Right, the trust you have on the audience.
And you mentioned that people have been finding GROAS on LLMs, and you are selling Google ads. So that is in the future things are adjusting. Meta glasses, all different people using sort of more visual search, etc. So that might be a nice chat later in terms of where you see the industry going and how you're going to keep going with that. But the last question I want to ask, and this is specifically on the branding aspect, do you know what a 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure SaaS company does to build their brand? Do you know the steps? Do you know the phases? Do you know
No.
What does it look like internally?
No, off the top of my head, no.
So that's a discussion I'm going to have probably in one of my later podcasts, because one of the challenges that businesses like yourself has is that not many of you guys have had access. You've been working on the technical side or the sales side or the making money side, but not on the branded side. And there's a whole different world and industry in terms of brand in these organizations, in terms of how does a 7-figure business act and look? How does a 8-figure business act and look? So if you think that's a good topic for me to discuss, perhaps later in the podcast, let me know. And folks at home can also chat to me about that, because that's really interesting, because this is the inner workings of how do these large companies operate and how do they build these phenomenal brands.
100%.
Yeah, I think I've covered most of my aspects. I mean, we could also, talk about how you're building your team, but I think we can leave that for another episode. But last question for you again, in a year's time, what is the space that you see yourself in? So you say you're launching a whole bunch of new products. Remember, as a new business like yourself, having B2B, B2C, new products, that's a lot for this beginning phase. And even though there's AI and all of these things, sticking to your knitting is really good. So if you had to challenge yourself, what is the one thing that you're going to be, saying tick in 1 year's time and say, yes, I've done it?
Yeah, easy. So I guess I don't want to say we're finished, but we kind of got there with paid ads, with at least paid search. So Google and GPT ads and whatever, like we're sort of there. Like we were the first to do it, so we have a massive advantage. The next thing we tackle is how you show up in these AI answers organically. So without, in theory, paying for them with paid ads, how you can do it organically. Now, the one thing I will say on that is there's a horrendous amount of AI visibility tools, AI whatever, a lot of people doing this. I would say it's much more competitive than the paid ad space, what's going on there, at least from what I've seen. The only difference is, I don't want to say too much, but like we are going very, very deep, right? Very deep. So we're not selling it as a tool, much more as a managed service, but going super, super deep, but trying to productize as much of that service as humanly possible. So it's still very early phases where we're at with that, but I think in a year's time, it'd be great if we can get to the same point we got to with Google Ads and be able to say we sort of did it.
Fantastic. Well, with your data and maths-based thinking behind the business, I'm very excited to see where you guys go, and I look forward to having an update in a year, David.
For sure. Be happy to do it again.
Great. Have a great day.
Cheers, Nicholas.
Oh, last thing I forgot to say, where are we going to send people? So let's, because Let's. Where are we going to send people if they've got an e-commerce business but want to take this to the next level? How can they get in touch with you?
GROAS.com is our website. Me personally is dp@groas.com. But if you go to either of those places, you'll be in good hands.
And for those poor American viewers who can't understand one word that David is saying, it's GROAS.com.
That's right. Thanks for that.
Bye, everyone.